So, have you ever tried to share a screen or like a video and suddenly the aspect ratio just goes totally rogue? Everything
Mhm.
looks like this stretched out, distorted nightmare.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's one of the most common and honestly frustrating visual glitches out there.
Right. Well, today's deep dive is exploring exactly how broadcast professionals make sure that never happens on live television. We are pulling from a stack of technical specs and vendor notes to look at one specific piece of gear, which is the AJA ROI-DP DisplayPort to SDI Mini-Converter from HDTV Supply.
And, when we look at these specs, the word mini is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. I mean, it only weighs about a pound and a half, but it is solving massive technical hurdles in the broadcast world.
Yeah, a pound and a half, but with a serious price tag to match. This little box costs $1,295. So let's unpack this. What makes a single video converter worth that kind of money?
Well, to justify that price, we really have to look right at the name of the device itself, ROI. And in this context, that stands for Region of Interest Scaling.
Okay, so looking at the software guide, it says you use their free mini config program, which works on Mac or PC, right?
Right, yeah,
And you basically just draw a box around a very specific portion of your DisplayPort image.
correct. You isolate just the part of the screen you want, and the hardware scales that exact region and then converts it into an SDI signal.
An SDI, just for those unfamiliar, that's the heavy-duty, uncompressed video standard used in professional studios.
Exactly. It's the industry standard for a reason.
So it's basically like using a digital cookie cutter to crop a photo on your phone. But here's where I get hung up. Cropping is easy, right?
Hmm.
But doing it live and outputting it to a massive studio monitor without it looking like, pixelated garbage, that seems completely different.
It is. That is precisely the challenge. And what's fascinating here is the sheer computing power required for the pixel interpolation.
Wait, pixel interpolation?
Yeah, so when you zoom in on a small region of a screen,
Hmm.
you don't actually have enough original pixels to fill a high-definition broadcast feed.
So the box has to basically invent new pixels on the fly to fill in the gaps.
Yes, exactly. It is mathematically calculating and generating new visual data in real time to keep the image sharp. And it's doing custom frame rate conversions at the exact same time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, doing all of that without dropping a single frame is really what you were paying for here.
But, okay, you've just created this perfectly scaled image, right? And if you send it to the broadcast mixer even a microsecond too late, the whole screen tears. So live cropping isn't the whole story.
Not at all, no.
Yeah.
A broadcast studio is an incredibly unforgiving environment. And that is exactly why this device features a Genlock reference input.
Let's break that down a bit. How does Genlock actually prevent that screen tearing?
Well, think of Genlock like a metronome for an entire orchestra. Instead of every camera and switcher firing video frames at random intervals, Genlock sends a master pulse.
Oh, so everyone stays on the exact same beat.
Right? It forces every single piece of gear in the room to draw frame number 1 at the exact same microsecond.
So it forces the newly cropped feed into perfect lockstep with the rest of the studio. That makes sense. I also noticed the specs mention a DisplayPort loop-through.
Yes, the loop-through is a lifesaver.
So that means you can keep a local monitor running on your desk while the box extracts the SDI feed, right? You actually see what you're doing without blinding the live broadcast.
Precisely. It allows for local monitoring while all that heavy pixel computing happens internally.
Now, here is where I get genuinely confused, though. I'm looking at the audio inputs. The DisplayPort feed already carries 8 channels of embedded audio.
It does, yes.
So why on earth does this converter feature a separate analog 3.5 millimeter audio input? Isn't that completely redundant?
Well, it seems like it, until you consider professional flexibility. Let's say you're isolating a video feed of a silent presentation,
Okay.
but the director needs to inject a live translator's voiceover directly into that feed. That 3.5 millimeter jack gives pros the ability to embed entirely separate 2-channel analog audio straight into the newly created SDI feed.
Oh, I see. So it just completely bypasses the computer entirely.
Exactly.
So it kind of gives you the flexibility of a mini mixing station right inside the converter.
It does. And, looking at the source materials, it's clear that deploying this kind of highly specialized gear requires serious technical know-how.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Which is an interesting point because Looking at the source notes, the reviews for the vendor, HDTV Supply, they don't just focus on the tech
Right,
specs.
the support aspect is huge.
Yeah, customers with decades of experience are specifically shouting out the tech support staff, like Rachel and Mike, for their guidance. It really proves a larger point about the broadcast industry.
Which is why.
Well, that the hardware is so specialized that the expert support is actually factored into the overall value of the gear itself.
Absolutely. Because when you are dealing with live television, you are buying the assurance that the hardware will actually integrate into a complicated setup. There is just no margin for error.
Exactly. So what does this all mean for you? The next time you watch a flawless live broadcast, you know there is a mountain of invisible hardware working quietly behind the scenes.
A very expensive mountain.
True. But here is something to mull over. As artificial intelligence gets better at dynamically tracking and cropping faces automatically, how much longer will we even need human operators setting up these manual regions of interest?
That is a great question.
Right. Like, will the studio hardware of tomorrow just do all that digital cookie cutting for us? Something to think about.